Welcome to the Elaborate Topics podcast, where we focus on lab-specific strategies for medical laboratory professionals. We're proud to be the healthcare detectives that work behind the scenes to get the results needed to influence medical decisions. Let's grow together and jump right into the lab.
Welcome to another episode of Elaborate Topics. We are your hosts, Lona Small, Tywauna Wilson, and Stephanie Whitehead. Elaborate Topics is a weekly podcast where we come to you to bring you tools and tips to help you to excel both inside and outside the lab. And today we're excited to bring you another episode, and we'll be talking together on a roundtable on leading without a title. And I know there's just so much being said about leadership and who can lead, who is really a leader. But today we're going to really talk about you can actually be a leader even without a specific role. And so if you look up like who is really a leader in terms of definition, there's just so many definitions on who is a leader. Mainly a lot of people say, oh, you have to have a clear vision and set a vision for, someone to follow. There are others that say you have to have influence. And yes, that's true. But in terms of leading without a title, it's going to be really important for you to first acknowledge that you can be a leader. So who can really be a leader? Someone who decides that, yes, no matter what, even if I have a title or not, I can lead. So when I think of a leader, I think of someone who really has influence. And a lot of times we can have influence without really knowing it. Someone that when they do something, say something, or create something, others would want to follow, others would want to copy. And because, being a leader is, sometimes unknowingly, it's going to be very important to be aware of that and so be a positive leader. So I think of a positive leader as someone who is a role model, somebody who is setting great examples for others to follow. So, you can be a leader if you choose to lead. You can be a leader if you're choosing to influence others in different ways. So, like we talk about leader can be a negative leader or a positive leader. So when you're looking within your team, think about that informal leader that could have influence maybe in a negative way to your team. And make sure that you're looking to encourage the ones that are positive role models, because a leader actually is someone like a magnet that can pull others. So how can we actually lead? So when I think of how can we lead? So, you can lead, as I say, in so many ways by just being innovative. So if you're, say, in a part of a team, you're not a manager, you're not a supervisor, but you want to lead or you want to be aware of how you can lead. There are ways to lead by just being creative, by being innovative. So if you're part of a team, you could come up with creative ideas being a leader. Just come up with ideas of ways in which you could improve maybe a workflow. You may be working on the bench and you see things that are happening that are not efficient, and just having those ideas and bringing those ideas forward is actually leading, because you're leading change. You're coming up with creative ways to do things better. So that's one way in which you can lead. Another way in which you can lead is just like volunteering for projects. So if, for instance, you're in the lab and something comes up, you want to say the opportunity to validate for a new test or to bring on a new instrument, as a leader, it would be great to volunteer. volunteer to participate in projects or even to lead a project. So you don't really have to be a supervisor to lead a project. And ways in which you can lead also could be just supporting your team. Just being a great team player is a great example of a leader because you're actually a role model. So like I say before, a leader is someone who actually sets that pace for others to follow. So if you're a role model, you're actually a leader. So if you're a great team player, that's a way in which you can lead. Another way could be like training others. So if you're good on a certain bench or you're good with a certain procedure, you could volunteer to be a trainer. So now you're leading by showing others how to do things the best way. So as a trainer, you're a leader. Being a leader, another way to be a leader is like taking responsibility. Taking responsibility for the things that you do, because a lot of times people tend to, when things don't go wrong, to look to who to blame, either blaming your boss, blaming your team member, just blaming any situation. But being a leader is actually taking responsibility. And some of the top leaders have as their motto, the buck stops here. They take accountability. They take responsibility. So that's really a great way in which you can lead, is taking responsibility. And another way in which you can lead is support your boss. So a lot of times your manager may have so much going on, they're overwhelmed, and they're just probably looking for help. Just step out and support your boss. Ask, what is it that you can do to help and support your boss? Those are just a few ways in which you can lead. There's just so many ways in which you can lead. And if you think of the concept of being a leader, I'm sure you can come up with so many other ways in which you can lead as a role model and as an influencer. So Tywauna and Stephanie, do you have any more ideas in which you could talk about ways in which anyone could lead without a title?
Yeah, absolutely, Lona. And when we think about leading without a title, we also have to consider outside of the organization as well. I mean, leadership starts with you, and it starts with yourself. It starts with leading at home, leading in your community, leading in your churches, and leading at work with or without a title. If you think about it, none of us was born with a title, and we always tell our children, you are a leader, right? They don't have a title. I tell Brooke at the age of 2, you are a leader. So she starts with leading herself. And I challenge people to start leading where you are. Maybe it's in your area working in chemistry, and you see that there are things that need to be enhanced. Maybe there's an issue with maintenance laws not being completed. It doesn't take your lead tech or supervisor to be the one to step up and say, hey, we have an issue here that needs to be tweaked or needs to be enhanced. So start with your area of expertise and start leading there. You don't have to be told to lead. You don't need a title to lead. You can just start exactly where you are.
I was just going to really echo what Tywauna said about leading in your department and being a leader in your community, because so many times we're focused on the outcomes. We don't focus on necessarily what we learn in the process and the growth that we obtain in life from just stepping outside of the box and doing more things. So what I would encourage those to do is, just like Lona and Tywauna said, you don't have to necessarily have a title to take on more things. We said this in another podcast, that there's no traffic jams in the extra mile. So pretty much stop looking at the outcomes, which would be the title or the accolades or the appreciation or the acknowledgement, and just focus on the work, because you learn so much through the grit and the process of going through and putting yourself out there. You put yourselves in ways to be more visible around people who may not have seen you before. You learn so much. You put yourselves in situations and meetings that you might not normally have been in if you hadn't have taken on those extra projects or decided to lead in those ways. So really, I would say just focus on the growth and the outcome that comes from stepping up and being a leader instead of the title that you want. But we know that's not easy, and we know there's a lot of challenges when you do that. So what do you guys think about why would it be hard for people to do that?
Well, one of the things that come to mind when I think about the challenges of leading without a title, especially depending on the culture of your organization, you might not feel like you have the authority to be able to lead and you don't want to step on any toes. I hear that more times than not, like it's not my role or that's not my job. And people are so sensitive about not wanting to overstep somebody else's boundaries that what happens is we have severe gaps in our laboratories because it's like, well, that's the supervisor's role, or that's the manager's role. And we all know that in the labs today we're very short, and that means people are trying to do a multitude of roles, right? They're trying to do a multitude of jobs, and there are several things that are falling through the gaps because your manager might be focused on operations, forecasting, budget, capital securement, supply chain. They may not be focused on the maintenance logs, right? And so some of the challenges that come in is it's not my role. I don't feel like that I can do it. Like I don't have the power. Like I don't have the power to do that. And it's really not about having the authority to do it. It's being able to feel the need. And we know we have gaps in our environment. Sometimes people feel like, well, I don't think I can lead because people won't take me seriously because I don't have the title, right? Like they won't take me seriously. Well, I challenge you to think, do you have the expertise that's needed at the time to fill that particular problem? Again, filling the need and solving problems does not equate to a title. It does not equate to a position. Each one of us, when we come into work, we bring in a whole set of experience, knowledge, growth opportunities with us that doesn't necessarily have to do with our title. So some of it, I challenge our technologists, our laboratory leaders to look deep within yourself to know if you are able to solve some of the challenges that may arise. So when people say, well, people take me seriously, how are you coming off? You know, sometimes it's about attitude too. You know, are you coming off like somebody who's knowledgeable that can solve the problem? Are you coming off like somebody who has the wisdom? Is it your attitude? Attitude is huge in environments. And depending on your culture, everybody's culture, workplace culture is different. But depending on how you come off, you don't want to come off as a know-it-all if you don't have a title. And even if you do have a title, you don't want to come off as a know-it-all. But you want to be helpful. So, you know, if you come off as being helpful more than being hurtful, then not having a title is not going to be an issue for you. I know as being a leader, when I have staff that come off as helpful, they are able to feel the need, able to solve the problem. I am a lot more receptive to the solutions that they're bringing to the table versus somebody that is coming to the table with just complaints or no solutions. And so in my lab or labs that I cover, I have a lot of people that just step up and they don't have a title. They step up, they say, listen, I think this process could be better. I think we can make this worksheet different so that we're able to use our patient labels. I have a suggestion in regards to staffing. I don't know if it'll work or not, but I have a suggestion. And when you have overwhelmed leaders, having somebody that does not have a title come up with suggestions is like gold. And I know we probably talked about this in a different podcast, or maybe Lona covered it on her Lab OPEX live show. So make sure if you have not tuned into that show, I know she's not going to talk about it here, which she should, but check it out. It's on Thursday nights on LinkedIn at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. She has a ton of great laboratory resources that are on that show talking about topics such as this. So, if you don't have that title, now is a great time to be able to stand out. This is your time to shine. I mean, we've talked about the MLS to MLT shortage, and sometimes I don't know that our team members know what they really have to be able to offer those things. You may not have a title. Let's face it, the lab ceiling, there's only so many titles that can go around. But this is your opportunity really to be a real leader in your lab without having that title, because let's face it, the titles are just not there. And I'll tell you from experience of having a title for many, many years, it's not always cracked up to what you think it is. What are you all's thoughts about challenges with leading with?
Yeah, so I totally agree with you, Tywauna, about some of the conflicts that probably could happen when people have the wrong attitudes, when they're either coming up with ideas or trying to lead in a space without a title, because many times there could be that attitude like, okay, my boss don't know, and I'm going to show her or I'm going to show him that I know what to do. And that can create conflict. So having that right attitude is so important, as you say, when you're coming up with ideas. So you don't want to cause conflict with your boss or conflict with your team. And a lot of times, you probably just need that emotional intelligence. Sometimes people are aware of how they come off when they're coming up with ideas. So just be aware of how your boss is taking the ideas that you bring to them, or how your team members are taking it, and make those adjustments. So it's important to make your boss look good. So you're supporting your boss instead of trying to say they don't know what they're doing. So I think those were a really good point, to actually be a support to your team, a support to your boss, compliment and make your team look good, make your boss look good, and use your perception, use your emotional intelligence when you're coming up with ideas or creating new processes, and always look for different opportunities where you can use your talents, even though it may be challenging. And, of course, yes, it could be challenging, but it's so important to know how to navigate those challenges. So I don't know, Stephanie, any ideas on these challenges or any ways in which we could navigate them?
Absolutely. And, I think this is just such a powerful message that we're giving to our listeners today, because, like we said, there is such a shortage in our profession, and not only a shortage of talent, but there is, the titles are just not there. Everybody can have a title, but the work still needs to be done. And so your ability in your laboratory environment or in your work environment to step up, do extra things, go the extra mile, volunteer for additional assignments will be so valuable to the success of your laboratory. And, I think it was Tywauna who talked about mindset. Really, when we talk about the challenges of leading without a title, the concerns that one might have, I'm not the supervisor, I'm not the manager, will my team listen to me? I'm on first shift, third shift doesn't respect first shift. Really, the way to circumvent that is about your mindset. When you understand that leading is not about a title, it's not about the position that you hold, it's about the influence that you have. And it's about the relationships and the outcomes, and you can focus on relationships and outcomes rather than the titles in your laboratory department. Then that's when you guys really get to take your laboratory to the next level. And really, if you think about it, in your career, Many of the leaders in your laboratory were leaders not because they had a title, but because they had influence. I mean, we've all walked into a laboratory or department, and we can immediately spot out the person sitting at a bench or sitting at an instrument or sitting at a workstation who knows everything. You know, they don't have a title, but they've worked there forever, or they were super users on a certain program or instrument, or they just know everything about that lab section. And when you walk in, even if they don't have a title, you know if I go to them, they're going to be able to help me solve this problem or help me work through a solution to whatever you have. And I'm sure that person understands, you know, I don't have a title, but everybody keeps coming to me when I have questions. Everybody wants me to train the new employees. That's because you have influence in your laboratory. And you understand that leading people is not about authority or control. You know, managing is about authority and control. So leading is more about your relationships and your outcome. You do have to have accountability. You do have to have people who can hold things accountable or, you know, take control of things, but that's really what managing is. And so just if you can, in your mind, think about there's managing and there's leading. And to be a leader, you do also, to manage, you also do need to be a leader, but we can also think about some managers who don't have influence over their staff and makes them poor leaders. So managers are given people to oversee, where leaders earn people that want to follow them. And that's where I said, you know, when you walk into a laboratory environment and you can immediately spot out that tech that, you know, you want to ask questions of, you know can help you with your problems. They don't have, per se, anybody that is accountable to them or that they have oversight over, but people do want to follow them because they're considered leaders in their area. So there is a book. I love this book, and you know, I've brought it up several times. But to me, it's just a great book for new leaders or anybody out there who just wants to grow their depth and of understanding of how to have influence in their work environment or in the space that they're in. And it's by John C. Maxwell, and it's called The 360 Leader. And in it, he goes through a number of myths, leadership myths, that he helps you dispel in your mind to change your mindset from managing and control and authority to really leading and inspiring and influencing. And these are ways that you can circumvent those challenges that Tywauna just talked about if you're feeling like you have those challenges with leading. So the first myth is the position myth, which, it's evident from the title of the myth that you, in your mind, think, okay, I can't be a leader if I don't have the position. In the chapter, he goes through discussing that leadership is not about a chair or an office that you sit in or a position that you hold. It's about the influence that you have over people. The destination myth, which is, when I get to the top, then that's when I'm going to start leading people. When I become the director or the manager, then that's when I'm going to start leading people. And that's a dangerous myth because leadership, just like learning, is a lifelong process. So you want to start wherever you are with starting to gain the tools and adapting and learning skills and developing habits that will help you be successful when you finally get to that destination, if that's where you want to go. If you want to remain a blood bank scientist or, a phlebotomist your entire career, that's great, but then also be the best phlebotomist or blood bank tech that you could be. The influence myth, when I get to the top, then people will follow me, and we all know that's not true because, like we said, we have those informal leaders in our department. And really, to me, if you have to walk up to somebody and flash your badge in front of their face and tell them your title, you're not a leader. That's a dictator. If I have to go up to you and say, I'm the chemistry supervisor, you need to listen to what I say, then that means that you are forcing people to follow you rather than influencing people to follow you. So I always tell people that I work with that the position gives you a chance. If when you get a new position, once you become a supervisor, once you become a manager, that gives you a shot for people to listen to you for a little while. But that only buys you so much time. After a while, you have to earn trust and you have to earn influence from people. Don't be afraid of the inexperience that you have. Look for your potential. Strive to be at the top of your game, not the top of your organization. And really, like I said before, the best way to cultivate all of the challenges that we've talked about is really just to manage your mindset, cultivate a great positive mindset, and manage yourself. Be coachable, be enthusiastic when you come to work, ask questions, show positivity, and be a person that is appreciative, flexible, and respected in your laboratory. I think there's a lot of benefits that also come from you stepping up and leading in your department without a title. Obviously, there's a benefit to your management team, right? Because informal leaders grow into formal leaders. So if you step up and take a role as an informal leader, when a title does become available, you probably will be one of the people who are considered for that position because you've already stepped up without a title. There's a benefit to your team, and we talked about diversity and inclusion on a previous roundtable, that when we have a group of leaders, when we have a group of people who are fostering ideas and bringing their whole self to work and, coming at 100%, then that increases our diversity and our inclusion in our laboratory. And it just helps us make better decisions, and it helps our laboratory be overall better. And then, obviously, as an individual, there's benefits to you, right? You're gaining more experience, more things you can put on your resume, more things that you can learn about, and more things that you have experience in. Have you guys ever led without a title? What were some of the benefits or some of the benefits that you talk about when you're in your department?
Yeah, so I can think of a lot of benefits. Like you said, a lot of things come through practice. So I love what you said about just practicing. You actually are preparing yourself for that role when it happens. And another benefit is really the respect that you get from not only your team, your peers, but your boss. So you're respected at work. And also you feel better about, at the end of the day, you feel better about the work that you did. And I think that you're really learning. You're on a learning platform where you're learning how to overcome certain challenges at an early phase. You're learning how to manage people. And you're giving, if several people are actually leading in the team, you're actually strengthening your team. So you're making your team a better team. So I can see just so many benefits when you just lead. And if most team members decide that I'm going to lead in my little space, my little spot, then you become together collaborative as a better team. Those are some benefits that I can think of. Tywauna, what do you think?
Those were great, Lona. Absolutely. Stephanie covered a lot of great information there. One of the things, just to be quite honest with you, of being able to lead without a title is I didn't have the pressure because nobody was looking for me to share those ideas that I had. At least for me, when I entered into the laboratory industry, a lot of my leaders were kind of old school in their thinking, and that, was that hierarchy, you got to have the title. And so for me, coming in and offering these helpful suggestions of ways, because I knew from having great mentors and being in other environments, being very active in the community, I know one person can't do it all. And so having those ways of being able to offer those subtle ways to help was great for me, because then it allowed me to shine without the pressure of meeting any demands, without higher ups really looking for me for that level of expertise. So it was a great way starting out. Again, the industry has changed a lot since then. So now as leaders in the industry, we really count on and need our team to step up and offer those benefits. But for me, because I knew where I wanted my career to go, I knew being able to be more helpful was going to get me where I wanted to go and get allies for me versus being hurtful in the environment, being a chronic complainer in the environment, always finding the problems in the environment. So that's one thing that I can think of, and that's just being totally honest with you, of being able to lead without a title, was I didn't have that pressure. And everything that I was able to offer, I felt like if I offered these solutions, well, if they didn't feel like they were great solutions, no loss, no foul. I didn't lose anything. And I think sometimes in our environment where people focus on, being perfect and having all the answers, then sometimes people are more reserved to offer those solutions or help, with that fear of, is this going to be accepted? How are people going to view this? It's just a different way of thinking. I challenge scientists to really do some mindset work. I'm saying it really has an impact on you, and it will benefit your personal and professional, because then you're not so in your head of thinking of, should I help, should I not, should I offer this suggestion, should I not, should I speak up at the meeting, should I not? You don't even think like that anymore. But, again, that was a benefit that I could think of.
I agree. And also for the technologists, doing the mindset work, get a mentor, maybe shadow a person, and then you'll understand, being, quote unquote, at the top, or having the title that you think is, so big, is not all it's cracked up to be. Like we said, it comes with its own set of problems, its own set of challenges, and we've talked about that in other podcasts. I think sometimes people with inexperience tend to overestimate the value of a title, because they look at the office or the, perceived benefits or the perceived pay. So I would just, like you said, just challenge you to just have enthusiasm, show positivity, no matter what your job is, no matter what your role is, and you will get noticed, and you will make an impact from exactly where you sit in the organization. I think we can talk about this topic, forever, but we want to hear what you guys think. Make sure you leave a comment. Make sure that you chime in, send one of us a message on our social media pages or on our Elaborate page on LinkedIn. We want to hear more about you. Are you an informal leader in your department? Are you timid about stepping up and you want some more mentoring from one of us? We're happy to help. That's our role here on this podcast, to help you excel inside and outside of the laboratory. But until then, thank you for tuning in and checking out another episode of the Elaborate Topics podcast with myself, Tywauna, and Lona. Like I said, we love to hear from you guys. Make sure you like and share this episode and tell us what you think. If you're liking what you heard today and you want to hear more of the previous shows, you can always subscribe to our show at directimpactbroadcasting.com or on your favorite podcast platform. Tune in next week, next Tuesday. Every Tuesday we release a new episode, so make sure you're tuning in with your pens and paper ready to get these gems that all of us are dropping. And until then, have a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Elaborate Topics, where your hosts discussed relevant strategies for laboratory professionals. Please subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and listen to us on directimpactbroadcasting.com. Stay tuned for another episode with information you can use to excel in your laboratory career.